Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Tyler Maniac here, and today we're going to be doing a bit of a discussion video. I know it's been a while since I uploaded. I'm sorry, I'm very all over the place with school and scheduling right now, so I don't really have much time to make videos, and I haven't had a ton of motivation. But today I wanted to talk about Destiny 2. It's not a game I've talked about since before it released, with the reveal streams and stuff going on. But I wanted to talk about my main issue with it, and if you look at the title of the video, it's probably abundantly clear what that is: the difficulty. I know there's a lot of other issues with weapons or not weapons. I know there's a lot of issues with the microtransactions, and I suppose weapons with random rolls is also a factor in that, but mainly microtransactions and the lack of transparency with the community. I'm not saying those aren't bad things, but my main issue with the game is the difficulty. And the reason being, I was playing through the story campaign, and I was leveling up my new Titan character, because I haven't played a lot on PC. But when I was playing, I noticed that you could just run past most of the enemies. That you don't have to fight like 90% of the enemies. I was on the Titan missions, and you can just fly over them. They hardly do anything. It's not engaging. The game is not challenging in the slightest, and it sucks because Destiny 1 was almost the opposite of that in that respect. You couldn't run past enemies, otherwise you would instantly die. I suppose that did change a little bit later on, but when it started and in the Taken King, it was still, you couldn't just run past enemies. That's just not how it worked. In Destiny 2, you can just fly over enemies and they'll hardly even hit you, and even when they do hit you, they don't damage you enough. It feels like you're just fighting a bunch of people who are trying to shoot you with marshmallow guns. It doesn't do nearly enough damage to warrant being concerned about. And I'm not saying that every single enemy in the game has to be extremely strong and has to hit like a truck. No, I'm saying that none of the enemies are strong. Cyclopses in Destiny 1, like the giant turret enemies, the Vex enemies, they used to be extremely challenging. There were giant stationary turrets that did a ton of damage to you if you weren't careful. In Destiny 2, you can just stand back and you'll destroy them in like 3 hits. In Destiny 1, it took like a whole team effort to take those things down. And same goes for like the high tier enemies like Knights from the Hive, Minotaurs from the Vex, Fallen Captains. They were all a lot more challenging in Destiny 1. It was more interesting that way. In Destiny 2, almost everything is cannon fodder and easy to like tear through, other than bosses. And even bosses have a problem with this as well. They're all very similar in the fact that they still don't do enough to you to warrant being concerned. Even like my best example of this is Gaul at the end of the campaign. He is an extremely easy boss. There's one phase, he gets like super ability. He channels the light, but it doesn't do anything. You don't feel scared of it because it hardly does shit to you. And meanwhile, you're tearing him up with like all of your super abilities that should be like weaker than him. It's a really strange thing. Like, because in Destiny 2's beta, everything was a lot stronger. Everything was a lot harder to take down. And that's not the case now. And the boss, like I said with Gaul, they hardly ever do damage to you. Your main concern most of the time is the ads. And I know I was just saying enemies don't do a lot of damage like normal cannon fodder, but what they tend to do, they will tend to swarm a ton of enemies. So you basically can't handle them. You have to like take care of all the enemies before you can focus on the boss. The enemies aren't hard on their own. It's difficult because they just cram as much as they can into one space and say go. That's not how game design should work for tough enemies. It doesn't make it tough, it just makes it annoying. One thing I think that they could do to change it though, my recommendation to them is, rather than just cram a bunch of enemies into one space, I would say get rid of that idea. Well, to an extent. It's still fine to use occasionally, but I think it'd be better if you created just more enemy types that were more complex than normal enemies. Like, for instance, take like Dark Souls as an example for complex enemies. Every single enemy in that game, there are tactics that you can use to beat them, and there are a lot of enemies that are easy to kill, but they can kill you easily if you're not careful. I think that would be a lot better in terms of Destiny 2. Not just enemies that are like instantly dead just because they're there. I feel like it'd be a lot better to have to think about each encounter that you do. A great example by Bungie themselves is like Halo. When you go into a room like in Halo Reach, when you're taking back the sword base, I believe it's called, you go down into like this garage area, and there are 2 hunters and a bunch of cannon fodder that you have to take care of. So you're trapped in this enclosed space with 2 hunters, which can instantly kill you, while you're focusing on getting behind them and shooting them in the back so you can do damage, while also juggling the fact that you have other enemies in the area to deal with, and also juggling the fact that there are 2 of them, so you can be hit from behind, so you have to make sure they're positioned away from each other. There's a lot of factors that go into fighting in Halo. In Destiny 2, you can just stand back and shoot them in the head, and there's no punishment for that. You're not punished for playing the safest way possible. I feel like there should be a lot more engaging ways of making enemies tougher than just raise the health and raise their damage. Because, like I just said, with like Halo's hunters, they're extremely complex to fight. They might not be the hardest enemies in the world, but they're challenging, and it keeps you engaged and you're interested in the fight because it's difficult. And you have to like focus on multiple things at once rather than just point at head and shoot. It's a lot more interesting. And I feel like and Bungie like knows how to do boss fights too, which is the problem. They know how to make tough challenges. They've done it in Destiny 1. With the raids. Their raids are fantastic. And they show that they know how to do challenging activities. But they need to do this for all activities, not at the same scale, but they need to use that engaging, interesting gameplay and put it into their normal missions and their normal content that everyone will access, because not everyone plays raids in Destiny, and people will get disinterested if it's just way too easy and there's still content left to do. They won't care because they'll think, oh, well, that's just going to be just as easy. It should be a balance to strike with difficulty in Destiny 2, in my opinion. And there are plenty of ways they can do this, especially with strikes. Strikes can be such an interesting concept. They had good strikes in Destiny 1 with complex things going on, but Destiny 2 seems like they reverted back to Destiny 1 vanilla. And it's strange, because Destiny 1 had a bunch of really good strikes later on. So, I don't know. I think that there's a lot of ways that they can fix the difficulty problem. I mean, sure, they could just up health and up damage, and it would be more difficult, but it wouldn't be fun. It'd just be annoying. But that's all really I have to talk about, and I know there's countless other issues with Destiny 2, but those have been beaten to death at this point, and I don't really feel like talking about that. Like loot boxes and microtransactions and all the controversy with XP throttling. Like, I have nothing to add to that conversation. Everyone already knows about it. I just think that difficulty is another thing that they should think about in the future, and that's why I'm making this video. But anyways, let me know your thoughts in the comments or whatever, because I'd be interested to hear what you think, because even though I think it's a problem that should be addressed, to other people it might be great, but who knows. Thanks for watching, everybody. I appreciate your support. I know I haven't uploaded in a while, but I'll try and upload somewhat more frequently in the future. I hope to, especially during the summer, but there's no guarantees, so if I don't make a video, I'm sorry, but I'm trying my best. So, anyways, I'll catch you all later in the next video whenever I upload. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye!